need. Thank you very, very much. We appreciate it. Thank you as well to the SADA people. Some of them, they have been working with the website, designing, so thank you very much. And some of them are here today helping us. Thank you very much to the speakers. Some of them have traveled a long way to be here with us, and I think we are very fortunate to have them here. They are very high level speakers. And I would like to say a very special thank you to Teresa for your strength, for your energy, and for really believing that a green and a better world is possible. So please, a round of applause for her. Thank you so much, Teresa. You know that I love you. And firstly, I would like to talk about why ESADA is here organizing this amazing event. And we believe that we are preparing, we are training some of the designers of the future. We are training the people who are going to make our clothes, the people who are going to design our cars, the furniture that we are going to use, the spaces where we are going to live. And it is crucial to convey to them, to convey to you, some of my students, they are here, to convey to you that it's very important that you are conscious that you are going to play a very important role in making of this a better world, of making devices, items, clothes that really help the world to be a sustainable thing. You have all that responsibility, and that is why ESADA is organizing not only this Congress, but many other activities along the weekend and throughout the years that we've been teaching and training the designers of the future. And that's why we joined this activity many years ago with Teresa. And we really believe in not only in green design, but in biomimicry, because Mother Nature has been developing designs, developing items, houses for animals and everything throughout millions of years. And we should learn a lot out of her, talking about nature as Mother Nature. Apart from that, this Congress is an opportunity to make new links. We are working with the Utrecht University. We've been doing some projects together. Not only this year, but some of the years we have Katarina. She was an Erasmus student, and now it's a link. Well, it's not a link, it's just a friend that we have in Utrecht University. And she's been part of the organization, so thank you very much, Katarina, for everything. And we want to make this Congress and this activity grow. Now it's Biomimicry Iberia, it's the Utrecht University, and it's ESADA, and some other people helping, doing this possible. But in years to come, we are talking to with a university in Portugal. It's an amazing design university near Oporto. We are talking with the University of Belgrade. They are coming next week, and we want this Congress to grow because we need to spread this message, the message that design and that scientists and we are all responsible of making a better and a greener world, which is the dream that I said Teresa has. And thank you to all the speakers. And now Luis in a minute will come and will talk about all the amazing speakers that we're going to have today. And along this weekend we're going to have many other activities at ESADA. I really hope that you will enjoy them. And well, just to finish, of course, my biggest thank you is for all of you and for all the people online that we have at Utrecht, of people all over the world, maybe watching us and maybe listening to the things that we're going to say and the things that we're going to do. So thank you very much for coming today, and thank you very much for sharing our ethos. Thank you very much. Now Luis is going to talk about the speakers.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Well, the first thing I wanted to say is highlight the idea of Jose, that if all of you who are here, and without all of you here, and without the people that helped us at some point, or that made us laugh when we were in trouble, then this wouldn't have been possible. So I would like to especially thank those who helped us financially. And it is an honor to mention them. Quesada, Elisada. It's a design school from Barcelona, Navatur. We should leave any other one. Leave the Iberia, Granada, to the north. They have offered and helped us with a good part of what we're going to enjoy here today. And apart from that, I wanted to say that from now on, if you have any kind of problem during the conference, or if you have any trouble, people coming from outside, or people from here, ask Matt. You will get to know him later on. He's got a ponytail. Javi, Chris, Katy, Esther, all of the ones that you see that are part of this tomorrow, we will have a sign so that you can recognize us easily. We will help you with where to have dinner, where to go, your car, whatever, anything you might need to spend a good weekend. Apart from that, I would like to talk a little bit about what we're going to do here. We're going to talk about sustainability, because a long time ago we realized that sustainability was not something for environmental people or agricultural people who deal with the environment. Sustainability is a concern of all of us. Some time ago I read a book called Sapiens, and one of the reflections that really got my attention is that the one that said that one of the things that made the human being grow as a species is that he was able to fight for things that he didn't even know about as a group. And this is what I see sustainability is like. Sustainability is not tangible in all the disciplines, but it is part of all of them. And that's what we wanted to express in this conference. You're going to see people who are working with art, architecture, engineers, economists, and some time ago listening to economists talking about the environment was like a crazy dream, but we're going to see all of that, and that's what we wanted to show in today's presentations. So we will have Django first. He will talk to us about that relationship with the indigenous knowledge, and from then on we will introduce ourselves one by one. And we will talk about things which are more scientific, or we'll talk about how to communicate in the environment, or we will go through art as well, because we want this to be an inspiration. And all of you here have your own role in sustainability, and you're part of the solution, because at the end of the day, this is a very simple reflection. We have two ways. One is being part of the solution, or contributing to not to find a solution. With a small effort, we can all be part of the solution in our own small sphere. I wouldn't want to dwell on all of this, and if possible, we will move straight to Django. Django is going to connect to us online, because he had a problem with the passport, so we will have to see him online. And meanwhile, I'll tell you about, we're going to have 3 presentations. We're going to have a short break, and then we will continue. So please be responsible with the break time, because we have a very tight schedule. So please try to respect the timing, and also the interpreters who are helping us to understand each other. They'll be thankful for that as well. Okay, I'll leave you with Django.
Por ejemplo, yo no existiría si no fuera por el líquen, porque el líquen es lo que alimenta los reinos, y los reinos alimentan todo lo demás. Líquen no es realmente una planta, es más bien relacionado con los hongos. Es que el líquen no se alimenta de la tierra, se alimenta del aire. Así que solamente hay líquen donde el aire todavía está limpio. Por eso tal vez hay un dicho que dice que el reino es la propiedad del viento. Y bueno, sin el viento que alimenta el líquen, no habrá nada aquí.
Well, Django should be online. It wasn't this, but just to tell you a little bit about it, this is a video, and what that wanted to show is that the air is related to purity. If lichen disappears, and it's disappearing quite a lot, I don't know if you like the mountain or you're very close to nature, but it's more and more difficult to find it. Yeah, okay, Django will tell you about it then. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Well, I should start introducing myself.
And I'm Sami from Sápmi. And Samis, we're the indigenous people in the north of Europe. Soy Sami de Sápmi y nosotros Samis somos un pueblo indígena en el norte de Europa.
Indigenous village in the north of Europe.
Al norte del Círculo Polar. y Sápmi es el nombre de nuestra tierra.
Is the name of our land, which is north of the. No, he shouldn't be translated. You don't need him to translate. Okay, some European villages started to colonize this.
About 500 years ago, colonization started from the European countries of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia. Y los países colonos eran Noruega, Suecia, Finlandia.
And these villages were Russia, Sweden, Finland, etc. And 10,000 years ago we had established here following the last ice age. So the colonizing countries. So we came about 10,000 years ago following the reindeers that were following the ice that was retreating after the last ice age. So we were living mainly on hunting and fishing, but then during the last few hundred years we are mainly known for reindeer herding. Y antiguamente cazábamos renos silvestres y mayormente, pero cacería y pesca, de eso vivíamos. Y hace unos siglos empezamos a tener renos, a cuidar renos, y eso es lo que somos más conocidos por. Así que se puede decir que Sápmi es la parte más silvestre, más natural, más virgen de Europa. We can say that Sápmi is the most wild and pristine and untouched area in Europe, where it's still a lot of nature, lots of mountains, forests, and clean water. And what's most important to us is reindeers. And in extension, the reindeers, they live from lichen. What you saw in this short little movie. That lichen lives from, it feeds from the air, so it reacts on air pollution faster than other life, than other living organisms. Así que lo más importante para nosotros son los renos, y, más que todo el lichen, que es la comida de los renos. Y el lichen no es una planta, se alimenta del aire, así como vieron en esa pequeña película. Y así que
es uno de los pocos sitios donde todavía hay posibilidad de vivir una vida más en armonía con la naturaleza, a seguir el ciclo de la naturaleza. Como mi padre, por ejemplo, nació en un tipi y en ese tiempo vivieron en tipis todo el año mientras estaban migrando con los renos. Y hoy en día es un poquito diferente, hemos modernizado y la gente tiene casas, pero los renos tienen que hacer la misma migración. Así que la gente tiene una casa en el campo de invierno y otra en el verano y se vive en tipis entre medio cuando se está de migración. And like when my father was born in a tipi, and that time we were living in tipis year round and following the reindeers. Today it has changed somewhat. We have some more modern equipment, but the reindeers has the same needs and needs to do the same migrations. But nowadays people usually have a house in the winterland and a house in the summer, and then live in tipis while on migration in between. So yeah, and this clothing that I have on, this is a traditional Sami clothing, and the origin of this is that why we have so many colors on it. I mean, they're very specific because they tell a story of where exactly I'm from. But the original idea, it comes from making the life beautiful for the reindeers, because since we are deciding over how their life is going to be, then it's our responsibility to make their life beautiful. Y esta ropa que tengo puesto, esto es la ropa indígena, la ropa típica de mi gente. Una cosa es que esto dice de qué parte de Sápmi soy, pero más importante que eso es que nosotros mandamos sobre la vida de los renos y entonces es nuestra responsabilidad de hacer su vida linda. Y por eso vestimos así cuando vamos al trabajo. Y hace unos 10 años atrás leí en una revista científica que los científicos habían descubierto que los renos es el único animal relacionado de los ciervos que pueden ver colores. Pero mis ancestros sabían eso hace siglos. And this clothing, I was reading in a science magazine about 10 years ago that reindeer is the only deer-related animal that can see colors. But my ancestors knew that many centuries ago. So this is a little bit of my background, what I come from. And growing up this way in an indigenous community, in an area that's also, for being in Sápmi, it is the most wild and unspoiled area. Y creciendo de este modo en ese campo que para ser en Sápmi también es muy silvestre. Y creciendo así en una comunidad indígena, eso me hacía pensar mucho en lo que se puede ver en el mundo. So that made me think a lot about what was happening in the world and the destruction that is going on, because the nature is disappearing very fast. It's already a big difference from when I was a kid, and I'm not that old. And so the nature is disappearing faster and faster. And so does the indigenous knowledge that goes with it. Lo vi que la naturaleza está disminuyendo más y más por cada hora que pasa. Y también la sabiduría indígena, porque la sabiduría indígena es muy conectada con la tierra. Por ejemplo, en mi idioma tenemos más que 100 palabras para niño. Y tenemos muchas palabras para describir otras cosas en la naturaleza. Por ejemplo, para describir un reno hay también alrededor de 100 palabras. Y el significado de esto es que el idioma que hablas afecta el modo que piensas. Porque es muy difícil pensar pensamientos que no tienes palabras. Y esa sabiduría esa sabiduría existe dentro de nuestro idioma. Y así es con indígenas en todas partes. En el Amazonas, por ejemplo, no dudo que tengan ni una palabra para nieve, pero tendrán palabras para cualquier otra cosa en la naturaleza que afecte su vida. Así que un entendimiento de la naturaleza también está dentro de los idiomas indígenas. So, like the indigenous culture and the land, the disappearance of those things goes together, because in my language, for example, we have over 100 words for snow and about the same amount of words for describing a reindeer. And we have many words for describing a lot of things in the nature. And this is the way it is with indigenous languages, because they can describe the nature of the land where the language is from much better than any other, because there is it's a wisdom that's hidden within these languages. And the thing is that it's hard to think thoughts that you have no words for. So this is why these languages are having a wisdom within them. And nowadays, it's all of a sudden, I'm saying all of a sudden, it's been going on for a long time, but it's quite sudden that so many people on this planet starts to be concerned not only about nature, but also about indigenous people and shamanism. All these things have started to become quite interesting in the big world society now this last few years. Hay un interés por estas cosas, la sabiduría indígena y chamanismo y esas cosas, porque está desapareciendo tan rápido que ya no va a haber más en poco tiempo. Así que el interés ha subido bastante en los últimos años por estas cosas. And I think that is something that is very important, because to make a situation better, it's important to understand the situation. And our way, I'm talking about us humans together, our way of explaining the world and also life itself, why it is the way it is. Our way of doing that is called science. And a few hundred years in Europe, it would have been called religion. But today the main field of explaining the world is science. So I was thinking about this a lot when I was growing up, because what I saw science do was not exactly solving our problem. It was more the opposite. The more modern inventions that were created, the more distractions on the nature and in extension on us humans that live within the nature. So I was quite critical to anything man-made, like whether being it physical or not. But the thing is that it always has to be a development. Ciencia es como el modo que explica el mundo. Hace unos siglos en Europa, entonces el medio de explicar el mundo y la vida era la religión mayormente, pero hoy en día sería ciencia. Y para cambiar una situación es importante entender la situación. Por eso y eso es generalmente a través de la ciencia. Pero lo que yo vi cuando crecí era que la ciencia no hacía tanto para hacer cosas mejor. Más bien la ciencia destruía más y más. Pero de ahí llegué a entender que siempre tiene que haber una evolución, un progreso. Y muchas cosas buenas han sido creadas por la ciencia también, como los hospitales funcionan mucho mejor ahora que hace 500 años atrás, por ejemplo. Pero fue un error bastante grave en algún lado, porque al usar este conocimiento científico y a producir nuevos inventos y así, entonces no se consultaron con los indígenas, no se consultaron con chamanes, porque en ese tiempo se decía que indígenas y chamanes no saben nada útil en ese sentido. Since we always have to have evolution and progress, that is, things has to move forward, and science have also done a lot of good things. Like the medical care is better now than it was a few hundred years ago. But the problem is that in inventing new products and in how to apply them into the world, indigenous wisdom keepers were not asked for their advices. Shamans were not asked about their view on these things, because it was considered that indigenous people and shamans did not have any important knowledge when it came to these things. But this, I would say, is one of the main reasons why the situation in the world is as critical as it is. It is very important that science and magic becomes united again, and it might sound strange at first, but if we think about it, 500 years ago, then it was magic if somebody were healed by medicinal plants. And today that is science, because basically the whole pharmaceutical industry is built from the study of plants. Well, acupuncture was also considered magic at first. You could choose to believe in it or not. But then it started to become more science, and science understood how the stimulation of certain nerve endings had an effect on the body. So this is so what is science and what is magic? That is it's very intermingled, and if you search for the explanation of anything, it doesn't matter so much from what point you start, but to find but to continue the journey to the end, then you have to reach a point where everything is united, where for example, science and magic is one. So what it is about is a more holistic way of understanding everything, that a way of thinking like why do we need certain things, and how they should be used and so on. The development became somewhat flat. It started to miss depth in how we were thinking about this. Pienso que esto de unir la ciencia y la mágica es algo muy importante, y varias gente han entendido esto durante la historia, como Einstein, por ejemplo, que era un hombre muy espiritual, y eso era como un gran incentivo para él y su trabajo, porque cuando entendemos algo, no importa realmente en qué lado se empieza, pero cuando uno realmente entiende todo de una cosa, se entiende de varias perspectivas, y ya no hay más diferencia entre, por ejemplo, ciencia y magia. Bueno, eso fue todo.
Also, well, I apologize for the technical problems we've had. It's a shame that he couldn't be with us today, because that is a point of view that, in my opinion, we are very far from understanding. We're not very close to him in many cases, and I've had the possibility of enjoying an experience from that point of view, and it's very interesting to see how different people can understand the same in a different way, and they focus on different aspects, but it's all related to nature, of course. In that context, we integrate all points of view, of course. Inmaculada will talk now. She's a scientist from CSIC, and I'm really excited to introduce her. She was my final project tutor, and thanks to her, somehow I'm here. So I'll leave you to her, Inmaculada. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to thank you for having invited me to this weekend and this talk. Most of all, Luis, because he was my student, and that's why I am here today with all of you. Well, I'm going to talk about science. I'm not going to talk about magic. But as he said, I am Inmaculada García Romera. I work in this experimental station in Caidín, CSIC, and I'm going to tell you a story that started some time ago when we thought about working in obtaining zero residue that we could use for circular agriculture. And all of that project that I'm going to tell you about, which has been developed for 15 years approximately, this has reached a final point, that is the implementation of it in the industry. Nowadays we have a project with a company that will make this residue become a fertilizer. But let's start from the beginning. I'm going to tell you about a bioremediation of olive oil wastewater by fungus, and in order to create a biological fertilizer. The olive groves are one of the most important in the Mediterranean area. 90% of the production of olive oil takes place in this Mediterranean region. And it's true that with the olive groves we get the most precious good, which is olive oil. We all benefit from it. But we also get another residue, which is like a wastewater after the extraction, two-phase extraction system, which is the one that we've been using since the 90s. And before we used the three phases extraction to get the residue called alpecin. But what I wanted to highlight is that for every 1,000 kilograms of olives that we extract after a process of washing and milling, we have 200 kilograms of oil and 800 kilograms of residue. And these can get to accumulate more than 3 million tons of this wet residue, this wastewater. It's not very manageable, and after that it can be processed to obtain this pumice oil, which is coming back now in the latest campaigns for its use. It's coming up, and we obtain another waste, another residue that you can transport more easily, which is the extracted olive oil residue. But when we started with this process, many researchers thought that we should do something. We should value that big quantity of olive oil wastewater that was produced. So there were many possibilities and different opportunities for using it as a food, for energy, environmentally. And as I said, this olive oil wastewater oil is another way of valuing it. Also, it can be used for the production of fungi and mushrooms. In the production and the station of Thybin, we have a group which is working to use it as a feed for ruminants. We also get high and added value products for the industry of cosmetics and the pharmaceutical industry, also for the production of energy. And in the center where I work, which is got it's for agricultural purposes, we thought about the use of these olive oil wastewater as an organic fertilizer and also an absorbent of heavy metals to decontaminate or unpollute areas which have been polluted with these heavy metals. Today I will talk a little bit more about the process we carried out in order to use it as an organic fertilizers. There are different groups that work in the production of also bricks out of these alperujo or olive oil wastewater. The problem with this alperujo exists, but also we have another problem in the Mediterranean region, and it's that because of this intensive farming and the climate conditions are so special and peculiar in this area, the great climate change that we are suffering from globally, intensive farming, it has excessive irrigation, the use of non-organic fertilizers, and all of that leads to the production or the significant reduction of the organic matter of the soil, which is so important for sustainable agriculture. So if we have a residue which has got a high concentration of organic matter, and we have a reduction in the content of organic matter of the soil due to this intensive farming, then we have two components that we can join together and we can try to look for a solution for that. So one of the strategies to eliminate and recycle these residues would be to make it become an organic remediator, which will have increased the percentage of organic matter of the soil, and it would improve fertility, physical, chemical and biological one of the same. When we thought about doing this research a long time ago, we said, okay, we have the olives after the extraction of the olive oil and the obtention of these olive oil wastewater. Let's see what are the characteristics of these residue to see if we can make it into an organic fertilizer. And we saw that after it has a lot of organic matter, the content of macro and micronutrients, it's quite high. So if we link that with the percentage of humidity and the reaction carbon-hydrogen, then it means that this is a potential organic fertilizer. Also, this alperujo doesn't have heavy metals or organic pollutants or pathogenous microorganisms. So the first objective we had was applying it to plants and see how it worked. And we observed that when we added it to some seeds, and we saw the germination index of them, we have their water, and this was the alperujo, or this was water, there was a decrease of, there was an increase of that. So if we took that to the alperujo, if we took it to the greenhouse or the field in tomato plants, we observed that we added it to the dosage with the organic fertilizer. The decrease in the growth of the plant was quite significant as well, like 90% of the growth. So this alperujo, or we're calling here do, used as organic fertilizer, it has phytotoxic effects on the plant. After some research, we could show that mainly phenols and the cell wall were responsible for these phytotoxic effects. What did we have and what does nature have that makes it possible to fight these phenols and these cell wall? And we also had it as a tool in our labs. We have a collection of fungi that are able to break the cell wall because they have some enzymes like residoglucanase, etc., and laxase, etc., that can break these cell wall. And we also have other fungi, probian fungi or aminolytic fungi, that are able to break the phenols with different enzymes like laxase and all of these in the list. We have a residue then, we have the aim, which was to get a fertilizer in the end, and we have the tools to do that. We could see that the residue, the solid waste, and liquid and solid, this fungus was able to grow, and we started working on it. Basically, and I'm not going to show a lot of figures, but this is quite significant because this was one of the first trials we carried out. We saw that this is the growth of a tomato plant. This is the growth of a tomato plant with these olive oil wastewater, and this is the growth of the plant with these wastewater when we had treated it with different fungi. If the incubation was short, this is the dark bars here, the fungus didn't have enough time to degrade that residue. If the transformation took a bit longer, this fungi was able to degrade this residue. And what was more interesting was that fungi did not only eliminate phytotoxicity, but it made the tomato plant grow more than the control group. So we could say that these saprobius fungi eliminated toxicity and it improved the growth of the plant. So we have found a way of making the residue into a fertilizer. This is a control plant. This is a plant with the olive oil wastewater, and the plant which had been treated with the fungus. And as scientists like to go further beyond and go in more depth into why things happen, as we said, that phenols were the main responsible for phytotoxicity. We had a look at the main phenols and we analyzed it, and we saw that after a certain time of incubation, these ones that appeared here had disappeared. So in theory, these fungi were using phenols in their metabolic chain to diminish these phytotoxicity. So they degraded them, and also through another system of polymerization, they could reduce the phytotoxicity. But if we wanted to sell this wastewater, this residue, which had become a fertilizer, we had to go move further beyond. We had to see the plant growing more. Not only that, but also we had to see how that fertilizer worked in the physiology of the plant. Is the plant stressed or not? Because we are adding a residue, which even if it's transformed, we don't really know how it's having an effect on the plant. We had to see the status of the plant, and we also had to see how it affected the health of the soil. You know that the soil is very is essential for the micro and microbiota of it. So how does it work, this residue? At the level of physiology of the plant, be it immunology trials or biochemical trials, we could check, but with different parameters marked by plant stress, oxidative stress markers or oxidative stress enzymes. We saw that the plant, when it's using this alpirujo, is stressed. And the bar is higher than the control one. But when this alpirujo had been treated with fungi, then the plant would come back to its normal condition. So this remediated alpirujo improves the development of the plant. If we go to the microbiology of the soil, we can see that when we add a dosage of alpirujo to the soil, there is a higher bacteria abundance, microbiota, bacteria and fungi. There are changes in the fungic structure and functional microbial. There is an increase in microbial activity. So we had managed to get a residue that, after its transformation with fungi that we can find in nature, could be used as a fertilizer that would reduce plant stress, that would help take care of the health of the soil, and we can bring this cycle to a close because we were coming from olive. We generate oil, then alpirujo, then we remediate it somehow, and we can add it to the crop of olive groves or any other vegetable crop. That is, the residue has become a resource. And this story ends with the interest of a company, which is particularly from here, from Granada, and this is the company that started to provide us with this alpirujo, which is an extractor company, an olive extractor company, and also olive press cake producer. It's got another company which is interested in the production of fertilizers. And this year we signed an agreement for a CDTI project, microbiome, is having bioactive concepts and with processes in the olive grove and the assessment of its biostimulating activity. That is our part, the production of fertilizers or biopesticides. This project's been funded by the ministry, also supported by the company, and the biofertilizer part of it is being developed by us in our experimental station in Zaidín. On the part which belongs to biopesticide, which is another very interesting part that's been worked on by another group, because that same alberujo treated by fungi can also resist pest. And this is led by the Institute of Agricultural Sciences in Madrid, the Institute of Natural Product of the Sick in the Canary Islands, and a group at the University of Granada. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, all of you, and everybody who has have participated in this work. You know, students, PhD students, lab technicians, and of course the company, which is the one that lately has been supporting us in this research. Thank you.
Thank you, Inma, for your contribution. So we have seen how while we are having not a lot of toast, there's people researching into what happens to everything surrounding olive oil. And here in Granada, the region is the biggest vegetable waste, and we are still working on how to use it in a more circular fashion so it becomes a byproduct. And now we're going to have a break. We need it to be 15 minutes, truly 15 minutes. So outside you have a little bit of a break, a snack. You've got a paper bowl, and we need you to get out steadily, slowly, so you can make it easier for the people giving you snatch bowls. So we need all of you to get out because of the protocol. There's you cannot eat it inside this room. Thank you. 15 minutes.
create these ecosystem services providing buildings, and indicators with which they can measure the impact and the degree in which buildings provide the ecosystem services.
I began to wonder, how would technological innovation and progress actually benefit nature, and how would nature improve technological innovation the other way around? It's really critical to think about, am I problem shifting, or actually really changing things for the better when I'm constructing a nature-based solution? In the end, I want to understand how to effectively manifest biodiversity in areas where we are losing it the most.
Ecosystem services as a living system, where I put the ecosystem services in a systematic perspective, focusing mainly on the relationships between the ecosystem services. And I hope that this can lead to a tool for policy making and help identify gaps within science.
I was immediately interested by how we can use ecosystems to transform and to implement in the built environment. How is this linked? I went on to do a project in a startup. This startup transforms old ships into floating houses for students in a sustainable manner. And that gives more to nature than it takes from it.
To apply the concept of urban metabolism to the building, so we can make a building metabolism concept. And by doing so, we can see what flows in the building, what comes out of the building, and connect this to ecosystem services. So what kind of ecosystem services flow in and which flow out? Hopefully we can here set the baseline and also try to identify leverage points and gaps for an improved integration of ecosystem services into buildings.
Doing research to create a framework or to find some inspiration for future sustainable nature reconnecting housing in the Netherlands. And formulating then advices for the real estate developer so that they could follow these and be the pioneers in regenerative design for the Netherlands.
Basically, my goal is to take a closer look at the biotechnologies that are being developed from a sustainable point of view, specifically from one that is regenerative. I would like to provide the people developing these biotechnologies with knowledge, awareness, and tools that would facilitate the implementation of regenerative and sustainable concepts from the very beginning of the development process, instead of just after the innovation had been conceptualized.
Important for me to switch on the microphone. These are colleagues from the University of Utrecht who were working with us on the project, and the issue of services and technical spaces is something that maybe we see it like something a bit away from us, but as we were talking about carbon footprint, and now we come across products which showing the label that they are part of ecosystemic services and that are zero or they're carbon free or zero carbon. So we are going to see that. So the next speaker is coming from one of our sponsors. He works at the ISABA. His name is Juan Casper. The ISABA is a school where design and engineering are taught, and he's going to tell us how they merge both disciplines at a lab where they work on projects, on medical projects, and they measure the capacities that living beings they have, and the needs we have when using products. But he's someone which enjoys in Spain a great deal of prestige, so we're very happy that both in terms of their economic sponsorship and their interesting contribution, working on things so different. Hello, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. My name is Juan Casper. I'm a teacher and a researcher at the ISABA, Engineering and Design University. First, I would like to thank the people that have made it possible for me to make this presentation here. And I would like to speak to you about the presentation we are in the research we're right now developing at our university and specifically at our lab. I've been told through my earphone that something was not well. Maybe, well, there's no need for me to repeat anything, I believe. It's just, I just wanted to tell you about the research we are developing at the ISABA, which basically deals with engineering and biomimesis. I don't know if you are familiar with the Textile Engineering, which is what I'm studying right now from the point of view in engineering and design. What we basically do is to imitate natural textiles or tissues in order to replace functions which are lost. For example, you take cells from the patient, we expand them, we see them, we saw them in a kind of a pattern, we add a series of growth factors and implant them in the patient again. That way we avoid rejects and complications during the process. At ISABA, we right now focused on bone regeneration, especially the maxillary area. You may see this picture. We are testing different types of scaffolding in order to renew this type of bone. And how do we do it? In this case, we are design specialists and 3D printing. That's the area where we are mainly focalized. We are in contact with the International University of Catalonia. We generate a series of bulk systems depending on the material we're using, and the cell cultures or in vivo and in vitro cultures, we also prepare that. So we design these scaffolds, and at the university they do the trials on the cells. And how do we do this? It's quite simple. We take these cells, we manufacture these type of scaffold, and for those of you who are not familiar with the subject, this would be a ceramic scaffolding, so an extra cell matter from a bone. This would be the trabecular bone. So bones usually have two areas, the cortical bone and the internal bone, the marrow, which corresponds with the trabecular zones. And how do we do this from the SARA? Recently, we have been able to create something we are referring to as the biolamp. This is a picture we took this morning, and there's a series of elements of equipment which help us to prepare the scaffolding, and we transfer our knowledge and our work on them to the university. And how do we build it? By tuning some types of printers. Maybe some of you can identify this, and so we say carve, remove and put in components so the scaffolds we want are created. So you've got an end printer working with semi-viscous materials, soft materials, etc. And of course there's a constant tuning of the equipment. We do not just focus on the modification of the printers, but also in the designing of the tips, the material for the tips. Some things we cannot manufacture themselves, so we've got to outsource them. But in general terms, what we do is to manufacture these scaffolds and fine-tune these printers. So our contribution is in terms of materials and engineering. So we design and print. These are 1 centimeter scaffolds, so they're really small. They are prepared with different software applications, so we can get in the end a PLA scaffold which imitates an extra cell matrix. And of course we've got to do a depiction because they are far away from a nature designed scaffolding or a natural scaffolding. So we've got to study the changing geometry of parameters, how fibers are affected by temperature after the material is extruded through the tip. So there are dozens of parameters we've got to study, from the type of Z deposited, the configuration, the mesh configuration, the preferred percentages for cell proliferation, the variation in the fibers of the scaffold acids, fused material. Depending on the material, the type of cooling will change. So we've got different diameters, and we're running the printing for just a few millimeters, so things become even more complicated. And what are we studying then? I was saying this at the beginning of the talk, and basically it stands for ways of mimicking nature. How can we approach these natural design processes, these natural structures with the materials? I'm referring to long polypeptide sequences. That's our job, that's our research. So here you have some examples on other approaches. These are textures matrices. There's trabecular zone. It's been decellularized. We've removed all living cells, and on the right hand side we have the proteinized or keratinized area of an epidermis. This is a murine model or mouse model, and here we have a different example of a matrix. It's a human matrix. We've got a transient area from the bending area and the cortical area. And why is it that I'm showing you these images? So you can make a qualitative comparison between a natural matrix and a synthetic matrix. And this is the work that we've got ahead of us at the university. Here you have other some images. These are the ones we were seeing black and white. We were seeing natural ones, and now we have the ones we've fabricated, we have manufacturing. As you may imagine, there's quite a long road ahead of us, but that doesn't mean that we're not very excited, which we are. One thing is a natural trabecular matrix, and a different thing is the one we generate and for cells to feel comfortable. We can recreate a natural niche, but it doesn't mean that cells will not be comfortable in our scaffolds, and the experiments we've done with these types of geometries and thicknesses is telling us that cells are okay and they proliferate, they multiply. These are from the recent scaffolds we prepared a couple of months ago, and that's models our work. Also, we mixed up these interface between nature and engineering designs. These are gyroids. Maybe you know these structures. They are 3D printer software applications, and we are increasing the porosity, so we generate something similar to a trabecular extracell matrix.
Así seguimos con nuestra investigación.
That's the way we are going on, and I'll be very happy to tell you about these in the future. Thank you, and that was all on my side. would like to thank Juan and Isaba for the participation. I think we can feel proud to see how they work, and during the weekend you will be able to see this live. You will be able to peep into the prototypes they prepare, and it's incredible how they can draw very interesting things out of this. And now we are going to mix up art and design, and we are going to be listening to Lisa Ardones, who I want to thank for the insect exhibitions he has prepared. We are setting up a workshop on clothing repair, and that fashion, that piece of clothing that we are not we do not give value anymore to, is endangering insect populations. So let's realize that before there's no solution for that. So I would encourage you to bring over a piece of clothing, so it can be fixed, it can be mended in an original and beautiful fashion, while you're learning a little more on entomology and insects. So I'll give the floor to Lisa now.
Hello to all. Thank you for the invitation, Teresa and Exada. It's beautiful to be among so many interesting people, and this is very familiar to me, having students in front of me, because I'm a professor. And today I would like to talk to you about creating wonder. So my title, I'm not going to explain my title now. You will understand in the end. Turning cockroaches into butterflies, cambiando cucarachas en mariposas. Yo hablo portuñol, por eso es mejor hablar en inglés.
I speak a kind of a mixture between Spanish and Portuguese. That's why I'm going to use English.
It's very important to connect people with nature. Most people, they say, or they are real about their intentions about saying that they love nature. We may love nature, just seeing through the window all the trees and flowers and the birds flying, but we are not connecting with that world. We are not connecting with natural world. So nature is still something abstract, and we do not feel that we belong to nature. We are another species. In fact, we are from the same family of the chimpanzees. So we are just one more. But as a professor of entomology and ecology, I had to create wonder to make my students get close to natural world. This is a point of view that is very common and about science, with which I do not agree. Things like science is a purely objective pursuit, or fact, proof, evidence. Yes, that's right. But this approach has no place for emotion. And people used to say, these are emotions are of subjective aspect, so save it to the arts. That's for the arts. But I don't agree at all about this approach. This is Mr. Spock. Maybe those that are younger never saw Mr. Spock. Mr. Spock is a character from a film serial, and he was an alien. and he was famously prioritized logic above emotion. So he didn't have emotion at all. He was just very pragmatic. And let's say that this could be the Mr. Spock view. But for me, science is wonder. Science is about things that can be extraordinary. And when we are enchanted by extraordinary things, we want to connect with them, we want to know them, we want to make part of them. So this is the way connecting with nature through science, in this case, because I teach science, is one of the ways to finally respect the natural world, respect species, respect the environment. Otherwise, it's something abstract. It's something that is not close to us, and we really don't care. So I'm going to give you an example of my first class of entomology. My students, I have two kinds of students, biologists and agronomists. So my students that are from agronomy, the first thing they ask me when they come to the first class of entomology is the science that study insects. They ask me, are you going to teach to kill the pests? And I say, no killing. So they get really disappointed. And I know this is going to be very hard, the class is going to be very hard. They need to memorize lots and lots of very difficult names. They have to touch, in fact, species that they find very ugly and disgusting. So for most people, there are only two groups of insects, the pretty ones and the ugly, disgusting ones. And the pretty ones are butterflies, or all of those that have beautiful colors and they are very delicate, whatever. And the ugly ones are cockroaches. Cockroaches, but even those that are not cockroaches, they are in the same group. So it's very difficult because most people grow up with this kind of cultural things that insects are awful. But in fact, life couldn't exist without insects. So I have to go through a difficulty of letting go these cultural aspects, difficulty of creating interest, and also the difficulty of changing the approach. I don't want them to come to the entomology class thinking they are going to learn how to kill insects. So the first class is very funny every year. I have all my students like you, and they come to the room. It's a very different room because the room is very big. It's almost the size of this one, and it's all covered with shelves with lots and lots of collections of insects. And so they enter in the class, they get amazed with all the decoration, and then they go immediately to see the butterflies. And I listen, I'm in a corner listening. I like to listen what they say. And they ask to each other. I didn't know there was this kind of insects in Portugal. And then some of them, they compare the colleagues with one of the beetles. Oh, look at this one looks like you. And they make laugh about it. And but when they arrive close to the butterflies, they stop laughing. There's the first glimpse of wonder that is coming. So after that, I have to tell them about the wonderful things insects can do. And what I'm doing is just preparing them to get connected with natural world. It's not only learning from PowerPoint or from the things they are seeing in the lab. It's about going outside without mobile phone and just really find the species. I tell them about the great power of resilience that insects have. The power they have when a colony of ants can rise again after a forest fire very quickly, and their ability to adapt to all kinds of environments wherever they are. So make them the most successful group in all animal kingdom. And the least thing is the Guinness of entomology. And I asked them, do you know who is the best runner in animal kingdom? Oh yes, cheetah. No, it's an insect. And who is the biggest predator? Oh, it's the lion. No, it's an insect. So, and do you know what is the best runner? And they tell me cheetah, ostrich. No, it's the one that you hate, cockroach. And then I show them in slow motion how a cockroach can overpass obstacles in a very, very athletic way. And they stop, and they want to hear more. So this is the point where I'm starting to have hope that maybe they don't want to kill insects. They want to know insects. And in this time, I feel that I can ask them the first exercise. The first exercise, I project a big 2D image of a grasshopper, saltamontes, un gran saltamontes en la pantalla. And then I ask them, okay, now observe very well, because this is external anatomy, la anatomía externa de los esqueleto del saltamontes. Entonces tiene de observar muy bien porque toda...
They have got to observe very well because every single element has got a function. And I tell them, please pay strong attention to this point. And they tell me, if I'm near her to draw, I would go to the arts department.
About art, this is about, I don't want you to imagine what you can do from an image of a grasshopper. I want you to look and just make it as real as possible, as accurate as possible on your paper. Oh, it's a big, big revolution. They don't want it. They don't want it. So I said, I'm sorry, this is an exercise. And so after a while, they have the most amazing, all of them, the most amazing drawings. Even those that told me before they couldn't do a line. Because everybody can draw. It's natural. It's innate. It's very natural. So when they see that they could make this kind of drawing, and now they can, they feel more self-esteem. They didn't know they have this talent. And this, in 2 hours class, I gave a class of anatomy without being boring. Because all the scheme was built by them. they have all the anatomy, and now they just have to give names to all the parts and study the functions of all the parts that are many and very, very detailed. Muchísimas partes de la anatomía del...
The parts and elements of the anatomy of the grasshopper are very special because they've got different functions.
What happened here is that students have talents, many talents, and we ignore them in the process of basic education. And the consequence of this is that many very highly talented, brilliant and creative people think they are not. Because when they were in school, their talent was not valued, and they could even be stigmatized. I'm a scientist and I draw. And for many years I had to hide my drawings, because in university it was not considered that a scientist would lose time drawing. But my scientific papers are only read by the scientists or by the entomologists, while my drawings I understood by everyone. So it's a very different kind of communication. I tell them about Leonardo da Vinci, that he was a scientist artist, and how he was fascinated by the natural forms to build his engineering artifacts, and how he explained how animals fly, and all the anatomy of animals and plants. And adapting this information, learning different disciplines to a problem that doesn't belong to this discipline, is going to produce an array of approaches that are more creative and interesting. So they start drawing, and they keep talking about the drawings, and they compete with each other for the best drawing. My grasshopper is much better than yours. And so in this time they are already prepared, I think, to go to field work. This is the kind of drawing they do. On the top you see all these arrows are showing different parts of the head of a grasshopper, and all these tiny parts have a function, a different function. They laugh about when I tell them that insects, they have their senses organs in very different places. So they have their ear under their leg, and they laugh about it. It's very funny. They find it very funny. They will never forget it, because it was so funny. And so a great deal of creativity is necessary to show different aspects of science. The study of arts should be common to all disciplines. It's a different language that, together with science or maths or physics or chemistry, can produce a more interesting language, affordable to everybody in meaning. So the study of arts may provide a powerful window to learn about the function and the failure of some biological structures and materials. And introducing the study of arts here in scientific illustration can explain very different areas of biology, in this case, that photography is not able to do. Use scientific illustration is like
Se trata de crear
a very complex drawing about an organism, and it has to be exactly like that organism. So photography cannot show all the details that illustration can. And I always think about this sentence, the first one. If we just try to reach people, to teach people the importance of nature, that is not going to work. It doesn't work if I say nature is important, we have to protect the environment, we have to take these measurements, we have to... it doesn't work. We have to connect. I've spent many times doing field work in different parts of the world, most of the times alone, because nobody has the patience to be hours and hours looking to a tiny ant. So I give up going with other people, and I go alone. And I connect with nature through drawing. When I draw an animal or a plant, I feel much more curious about it, and I feel that I established a link between me and that organism. So is that feeling of wonder that we all have spontaneously when we are a child, that we lose sometimes, like una mariquita caminando en nuestras
a ladybug crawling up her arm.
The most of us lose this joy, the joy of getting wonder, getting amazed by the natural world, and then connect with it. And here we have the mantis, one of the most powerful animals in animal kingdom, one of the biggest predators, and one of we call the warrior in entomology. This is a attacking dance. So she's pretending she's much more than she is to defend herself from a possible predator. And it's a very incredible animal, very sophisticated and very well prepared to adapt and survive. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Luisa, for your presentation. Very inspiring. That's another strong point of this conference, how to mix those two things, two parts of the brain, which sometimes they work so differently. We forget that it's we try to save time, and sometimes we have to close that door to let ourselves go with this creativity and have the capacity to learn new things. Now I would like to say something. We're going to have Samara giving her presentation, and then later on we will have a music show. It's a bit of a cultural mix here, and I think you're going to like it very much. What we wanted to do now and make you realize now is that what we're doing today, it's a representation of what we want to do during the weekend. We are lucky to have different representatives of different fields here, and during the weekend you'll be able to enjoy workshops that are related, but you will do it in a more practical way, so you will be able to reach that science. For example, Imma will show us workshop of fungi growing. We will have a colleague explaining what the process is like visually with the different materials. In the case of Luisa, We will have the workshop and the exhibition as well. And we will be approaching different fields of knowledge during the whole of the weekend. So I encourage you to take part in all of them actively and to be part of these reference and sectors that are telling us all of this today. We want to see how to communicate and how to reach that change, how to reach people who want to change, how to help them to transmit that, because that's another value in the world we live in. Samara will tell us about how communication can be linked to the environment and how you can apply that to different projects so that those have an impact in different kinds of people and places. And without further ado, I'll leave you with Samara.
To be here. Thank you for inviting me. Okay. So, yeah, that's me. And climate change and trying to solve climate change. So I think this is a good presentation to follow up on the other one because we are talking about imagination and about visualizing. So a few years ago I was traveling in Mongolia. And one of the visits that we did was this, to Kongoring Els, which is a huge dune. So in the middle of the steppe, all of a sudden you find this line of dunes which are huge. And so if you climb up on the highest dune, you can see it's the door to the Gobi Desert. It's beautiful. And if you see it at sunset, it's all like fire, and the dunes are just red with fire. But I didn't see it. This is not my picture. I didn't get there because it was very hard to climb the dune, and my guide actually told me, yeah, it's something that tourists like to do. You just climb the dune, and then you just come down. And I was like, okay, this is very hard. We tried. We stopped at the middle, like half of the dune, me and my husband, and we decided, this is very hard. You could go up 3 steps and you go down 4 because the sand was just coming down. So we decided, okay, that's fine. This is beautiful. We can see it already. It's enough. So we came down, and then another tourist told us, see, did you see the video? And he showed me the video of the Gobi Desert with fire and everything. And I was so mad to the guide. And so this came back to me a few months later. I was working for a company into sustainability, trying to push some sustainability projects and working with NGOs and everything. And this came to me and I was like, this is exactly the problem that we have most of the time that we're trying to do sustainability projects. And we're trying to do any project which is related to change. So we are asking people to climb the dune. It's very hard. 3 steps up, 4 steps down the whole time. Maybe you are alone, or maybe you wish you were alone. Everything is super hard, and you don't know what is up there. You don't know if the landscape you will see is going to be different from the one you just left. And we're not communicating enough about this part of that journey. So this goes back to the idea that imagination is so important when we are communicating a project which is related to change and sustainability. And so I started collecting some examples of good visualization and good projects of imagination connected to change and connected to sustainability. And I think we can all take inspiration from this. So imagination starts first with visualization. And visualization can be different things. It can be visualization of the problem. This is something that we have seen already a lot. This is an example from the CO2 emissions of the city of New York.
They visualize it as these blue bubbles, and so this is much more effective than telling you that it's 30,000 tons of CO2 emission in 1 year. That doesn't mean anything, but this, yes, it does. This is another example. This is a campaign by Amnesty International. They wanted to create awareness about the problem of torture and human rights, and they wanted to say, this is a problem, torture is happening. Even if you're not seeing in your life, even if waiting for your bus, you're not seeing it, this is a problem that is happening now. It's not happening here, maybe, but it's happening now. And also sometimes the visualization could be a visualization of the cost of inaction, which is something that is not so common as visualizing the problem, but it's very powerful. So maybe somebody of you are familiar with this visualization. And I'm so mad because why the climate movement didn't come up with this visualization before COVID? Why COVID came up immediately with this visualization, which was so powerful, because it was showing the difference between mitigation or not. Why we didn't come up with this before? Because it was a powerful visualization also for climate. And this is another example which I invite you to see on YouTube. It's from Fashion Revolution. They distribute this dispenser around the city of Berlin in big squares. And the dispenser was giving you a t-shirt for €2. And so people were putting their €2 and they were purchasing them. And just before closing the purchase, there was a video that was showing you the condition in which that €2 t-shirt was made. So the people that were working in Bangladesh, India, and people then could decide if to donate those €2 to the cause or just buy the t-shirt. Of course, nobody bought the t-shirt because when you see the effect and the gap between you wanting to be a sustainable fashion consumer and really not being, then you make the right decision. Another inspiration comes for sure from art, and especially when art match up with technology. In this case, this is called human sensor. It was an artist who designed this dress so that the dress could visualize, in a very visual way, the difference in the quality of the air. So actors were going around the city of Manchester from morning to night, and the dress was changing color according to the quality of the air. So it's another way to visualize something that is invisible, but then you visualize it and you really realize the problem. And then I don't need to say anything about the inspiration from nature here, of course, but I think it was very interesting. A few days ago, I read an article by writer Rebecca Solnit, and she was comparing the power of climate movements to the one of fungi. And because she was saying, and many of the, not only the climate movement, but many of the changing movements that are happening now are happening underground, and they have this net of things happening and connection, and you never know when they are popping up with results or with something visible, but they're happening. And even if you break one part, then there is another one that is growing. And I thought that was a very powerful metaphor for movement. And then sometimes visualization is connected to flip the script and just change the idea that people have about something. And these are some examples. This is my previous company, Aquafil. Aquafil is doing a brand of regenerated nylon. It's a nylon that instead of coming from oil, comes 100% from waste. So they flip the script, and waste is not a problem anymore. It's really as a resource. And so they're producing nylon instead of oil from fishing nets and old carpets. And then they use it for fashion and for interior design. Other example, maybe you're familiar with this, are these Notpla. They did this packaging, which is made for fungi again, and you can eat the whole thing. So, and it's funny because they use it at the marathon in London, and so people were running, and then they were putting this thing in their mouth, and it was water, but then they could eat it. So it's the idea of packaging that is not a problem anymore. And then the other one is Modern Meadows. Their idea was to make leather without killing animals. And then Impossible Burger to make meat and burger without killing cows. And then there is a huge chapter which is about using human strength. And when I say human strength, is about the joy that we get when we are in a community, when we share things, when we do things together, when we make things. And this is something that we need to use because it's very powerful. So it's not only, as you said, teaching something to somebody, but really that they can experiment it and make things. And so here are a few examples. This is called creativism. It's a mix between craftivism. Sorry, it's a mix between craft and activism. And so here are a few examples. The first one is from a creative collective, and it's very funny. There was this huge board meeting with a UK retail company, and they were deciding if to increase the minimum wage for a lot of workers. And so this craft collective group of people decided to do this handkerchief embroidered with "Don't blow it," the message "Don't blow it." And they sent this handkerchief with messages to all the board members. And in the message there was an explanation of how important this board meeting was and how important it was to raise that minimum wage. And it was a big success. And it was a nice thing because they were not opposing these people, they were not attacking them, they were giving them a gift which was done by hand by them, and it was giving a message. Same thing is that one with again with Craftivist Collective. They do these little banners that they spread in the city of London during Fashion Week, and the little banners are saying the difference between the wages of models that are at Fashion Week and the wages of people who are doing our garments. It's a small message, it's not polemic, but it's strong. And it's something that you do, and so you put your energy doing it. All of these, actually, and maybe you are more familiar with the Pussy Hat project, but all of these, they're doing symbols, which are the products, but they are doing all of these products in community, and that's the power of it. So people are meeting, activists are meeting to produce these products together. And while they're producing them, they're exchanging ideas on the movement and what they should do and the reality of things. And that is the powerful thing, really. The last one, well, the Pussy Hat project was, again, people coming together to create these hats, which were used at the Women's March in New York. And then the welcome blanket is another experiment from the Pussy Hat girls. It's a blanket that people in the community and activists can make, and it's to welcome immigrants. And together with the blanket, there is a message that gives a nice memory of the place from the people who have lived there all their life. And so the immigrants are getting there, they get a gift, they love it, but then they also have a message which is a memory of the place, and so they can get to know the place. And then this is an example of a powerful event. It was made by an NGO in Asia. It was to create awareness about the cleft lip, which is the lip that some babies are born with. And so they created this dining experience, and once again, this goes back to human strength and how much we love to come together, to eat together, to enjoy a beautiful meal. And so they created this dining experience with the chef designing all the dinner, and then they created this cutlery, which was impossible to eat with. So people were trying to get to eat the soup or to eat the spaghetti, and it was impossible to do that. To simulate what is the experience of people with the cleft lip when they eat. And so people were experiencing with their senses really the same experience of people that have this problem. And it was a huge success because at the end of the dinner, people could donate money. And so going back to the end of it and wrapping up, it's very important that when we go through a process of change or a sustainability project, we consider these things. We consider that we need to tell people what is the experience of climbing that. We need to tell them about the community and all the people that they will find on the journey, but also on top, and how that is going to help and make it fun. And then we need to tell them the beauty on the other side and what's going to change for good. And then we have to tell them that why the time is now, because time is now. And wrapping up, once again, I want to go back to what Louis was saying at the beginning, which I thought was very interesting. He quoted the book Sapiens, and he was saying that, and I read an article a few days ago that was also catching up on that, and he was saying that probably for our species, imagination has been one of the most powerful knowledge that has helped us as a community to go through and to evolve. And that's because with imagination, we are able to imagine things which haven't happened yet, or we are able to communicate experience that others haven't experienced, but we have. And so we can pass through this knowledge, these dreams, these ideas. And today, I think this is one of the most powerful things that we have. And once again, it's going to help our species to go through, because we need it. And that's it. Thank you.
Bueno, parece que ha acabado, pero no ha acabado. Así que ahora llega la parte en la que nos gusta enseñar cómo, o tratar de mostrar cómo vemos nosotros las mezclas. Entonces, en esa manía por integrar cosas, vamos a tener a una persona que viene de China, que muy amablemente nos va a enseñar a tocar la guitarra española. ¿Vale? Entonces, vamos a tener un espectáculo de flamenco fusión. Gracias. ¿Vos podés escuchar? Música ática. Y la afinación especial, quizás luego va a cambiar un poco cómo se dice, con la música. Voy a tocar otro estilo de Estados Unidos. Una canción que se llama Waiting. No seguro, pero más o menos voy a tocar.
Bueno, yo no sé qué decir ahora.
What to say now? Thanks very much, Eric, for taking part in this soiree.
Si esto no es una prueba de que integrando...
If this is not proof of how integrating different things you can have a good time, I don't know what to say there. So just thanks very much for being here. Sessions will be starting at 10 a.m. We will have a breakfast at the hotel at about 9:15. So if you want to come over earlier on, the Congress functioning is a bit complicated. There are 4 activities at the same time. And if we want to use these, breakfast time in order to show you how everything is going to be working. There will always be a room in English, another in Spanish, and I would just like to welcome you tomorrow. So now we'll have a cocktail time. We've got to leave the room because of COVID, but please get out and pick up your snack one after the other so we can respect the COVID control. Thanks very much for coming.
Perdón, una cosa.
Sorry, just 1 minute.